So to start things off, I want to give you some do's and don'ts when you're working here at the tutoring center. Let's start with some do's. The first thing you should always do is probe for background knowledge. Probe for knowledge. In other words, you want to know where they stand. If you don't know where they stand, you don't know where to begin. So when you're probing for background knowledge, you should do things like, the first thing I'll do whenever I sit down is to just say, okay, show me how you would approach this. That's an excellent little bit of information there. I'll make that little side note. I will always start off the conversation by saying, show me how to do this. And by doing that, you're doing a couple of things there. The first thing is you're probing for knowledge. You're discovering what they don't get all in one shot. Because they'll be working along and all of a sudden they'll stumble over something. And right where they stumble, that's where you need to help them. The other thing that you're doing is you're encouraging independence. If you just say, show me how, that's forcing them to know the material enough that they're starting the learning process. They say you learn so much more if you have to teach it or demonstrate it than you do just by watching and observing. So that's the first thing you should always do, is probe for background knowledge. The second thing is to ask questions and give a ton of wait time. I'll make that note. You want to ask questions and give a ton of wait time. I'll even put wait in capitals because that's very important. I'll ask a question and I will count to at least 10 before I give them the answer. If you answer your own questions, you're not helping anyone. Obviously, you know how to do this. That's not why they're here. They're here because they don't know how to do this, and so when you ask a question, wait. I've counted to 20 before, and if you just give them enough time, what you'll find is that the longer you wait, the more likely it is they're going to provide an answer. Even if the answer is wrong, that's okay, and tell them it's alright. You want them to explore. You want them to learn this on their own, and the way by doing that is to have them do it. So ask a question. Just as an example of how long I would wait, I'll give an example. I'll say, let's just use a very basic problem. Let's say I have x squared minus x squared, and I want to know what the answer is. So I would say, okay, what do you think the answer is? And then I would wait. And you can see that's a long time to wait, especially in a video here, but I'm making a point. If they couldn't have figured it out by about that time when I really did count to 10 there, then you can step in and say, let me help you out here. If I have 1 minus 1, that's 0, obviously you know what this is, right? So that's how long I would wait though, because your mind needs time to process all of this. And even though you can see this instantly, they won't be able to. When you look at this, you see one group of x squared minus one group of x squared should be 0 groups of x squared. They don't see those ones though, not as easily as you do. Even though you know they're there, they don't see them. And so it takes them a while to process that, to go, oh yeah, that's right. There's those imaginary ones there. That means 1 take away 1 is 0, and 0 times anything is gone. So give plenty of wait time. I cannot stress that enough. Let's take a look at some other do's here. The last do I have is to have the 2Ds work independently after you give a good demonstration. Meaning you should only check answers after they've completed the problem. Don't ever give them the answer, right? So tip number 3 is to have them work independently. I'll just say independent work. Independent work. That's what you should have them doing. Obviously, you can do this stuff. It's not going to help you or them if you do all of it for them. And that's an easy trap to get stuck in. You see it so easily, you want them to see it so easily, and it's easier for you to do it for them. But that's not the learning process. You want to Have them to be able to recreate the steps when you're not there, which is ultimately what's going to happen. All right, let's take a look at some don'ts here. First up on the do not list, never do the entire problem for the tutor, and I think we're all guilty of this one, me especially. I'll walk through the whole thing one time with them and then forget, oh yeah, I shouldn't be doing that. So don't do the whole problem. You should always leave some of the information up to them to discover on their own. Do the whole problem. Never do that. Second thing you should never do is enable dependence on the tutors to find the solution. Let's see, how do I want to word this? Don't enable dependence, meaning they need you around in order to figure out the answer. You should, but your goal is to get them to never to come back to the tutoring center. You really, as the way Kat puts it, you want to work yourself out of a job when you're working here. And the last do not that I have is belittle the tuties. It's hard. This stuff is very hard. And even though you see it very clearly, give me just a second here to write this down. Don't belittle the tuties. Even though you see the process very clearly, not everyone can see it that way, and you have to keep in mind you had to learn this at one point in time too. And I'm sure you can instantly think of your high school adventures wherever you had some instructor, some teacher who said, well, you should know how to do this by now, I'm not going to help you, or why weren't you paying attention the first time? No, that's not why we're here. You hated that in high school, they would hate that now. And that's not a real common problem. For the most part at the tutoring center, I think we're pretty friendly there. But you just want to keep that in mind. You don't want to make them feel bad. You make them feel bad, they'll struggle more in math, and on top of that, they'll never come back, and you'll probably get some bad feedback and everything like that. So, let's review. Do, probe for background knowledge, ask questions, give wait time, and have them work independently. Don't do the whole problem. Don't enable dependence on the tutors, and especially don't belittle the tuties.